Politics with Adam Shirley on ABC Radio Canberra.
The sounds of commuting through the parliamentary triangle, or they'll ring through this dampened morning. No sooner is the concrete dust and the scaffolding settling on stage 1 of light rail than there is hearty debate about stage 2. The ACT government has released its preferred route. There are complications in engineering, in cost, and questions as to whether it will even be built. So what's your take on the route, where it should go, and which people it should service? Well, the Federal Parliament of Australia has an ongoing inquiry going at the moment. A joint standing committee on the National Capital and External Territories is taking views on stage 2 of the ACT Light Rail project, and amongst those putting their view forward today is the Planning Institute of Australia. Big picture in its scope and focusing on this national piece of infrastructure, a local piece for us as well here in Canberra. John Brockhoff is the Principal Policy Officer with the Planning Institute of Australia. Mr Brockhoff, I appreciate your time this morning. And obviously the Planning Institute has an interest in this key piece of infrastructure. Overall, do you support light rail being constructed here?
Thanks, Adam. Yes, the Planning Institute does support diversifying transport choices available to Canberra and the ACT. There's an enormous opportunity for light rail to provide a framework for accommodating Canberra's growth better, and it'll also have a big role in improving commuting times as well in Canberra. So yes, we definitely support the notion and the practice of light rail. We want to see it done well, and we as planners speak for the profession and like to look to ourselves as a trusted voice of the planning profession.
And doing it well, it appears you differ from the ACT government regarding the route. The PIA submission includes a Barton deviation. Can you elaborate further on that?
Well, the proposal for stage 2 includes a Barton deviation. What the Planning Institute is looking for is ultimately the realisation of the ACT's whole light rail network master plan, which is much more than the section in Barton. Obviously, includes the entire northern spine down from Gungahlin and down through the city centre and across to Capitol Hill. And we also supported going down the southern corridor, providing that major north-south spine for Canberra down to Woden. Where it becomes interesting is at what stage do you service Barton? What stage do you bring in the different spurs? And how do you achieve all of the outcomes that the planners in the ACT are looking for the light rail network?
And tell us further then about the Barton route that you see would be appropriate for stage 2.
Sure. Well, whether it's stage 2 or another stage is something we'd like to look into further. Barton is a really important employment precinct. It offers enormous patronage opportunities for any aspect of the light rail, and it does need to be picked up in the light rail network. The question that I think all planners would like to see elaborated on further through this process is whether it should be in this stage or whether it part of Barton should be serviced as part of an additional stage or some aspect of the future network. Now, clearly, if you're going north-south through Canberra and you're looking to compete with both car driving and public transport options, you're going to want a more rapid route north-south through along the spine of the city. And if you're coming from Woden, you will no doubt want that time to be minimised.
Yes.
Clearly, if you dogleg through Barton, that adds time cost. There'll be extra stations. There'll be obviously more opportunities for picking people up and setting people down as it's a major employment destination. What we need to weigh up as planners is whether the trade-offs of picking up the patronage at this stage in the planning process for the light rail is the priority, or whether the speed of mass transit along the city spine is the priority, and that's what we want to explore further.
Or whether a competitive tension of sorts can be met at somewhere in the middle. Obviously, you believe the route that you are proposing meets both those requirements adequately.
We're not proposing any particular route. We're representing the voice of the planning industry. What we want to see is an explicit discussion of what trade-offs are being made for each of the route options, and all of the route options to be explored in a transparent manner, which we're seeing with the plans on exhibition. But what we would like to see is the the objectives of deviation through Barton and why they would be best met at this stage in the planning process rather than a different stage.
Well, point 10 of your submission to the Joint Committee today says there are other options that deliver an attractive service to the Barton Employment Precinct whilst maintaining the integrity of the ACT Light Rail Network Plan that have not been clearly articulated. What is it the government should clearly articulate?
Well, we have the ACT Light Rail Network Master Plan that, as many Canberrans would know, has many lines of a future light rail system based on the old Griffin plan that cover much of the city. And ultimately, with a growing Canberra, much of that network needs to be implemented. So the question we have is, how best do you interchange the different spurs, and how best do you achieve that entire network? And are you cherry-picking that network by including the Barton section into the stage 2? Now, clearly, it's important to have a north-south corridor through picking up on stage 1. And Woden is the obvious initial anchor for that. And clearly Barton does need to be serviced. And we are not here as a planning industry body to solve the problem for the government, but what we are advocating for is a clear analysis of all the options and how Barton can best be serviced and what stage it should be serviced, rather than the potential for cherry-picking the patronage that's on offer through Barton as part of this stage at a cost of transit times. Now, there may well be, and there are very good reasons for including Barton into this stage of the process, but it comes at a cost. It comes at a travel time cost on the light rail, and I think there needs to be a really clear analysis of what that trade-off is.
John Brockhoff is Principal Policy Officer with the Planning Institute of Australia. It is one of the bodies that will give their submission to the Joint Standing Committee on National Capital and External Territories Light Rail hearing. That is for proposed Stage 2 of ACT Light Rail. I welcome your thoughts on this as well. Regarding Barton, the number of people that work and live there, how should they be serviced as part of Stage 2? 1300 681 666 is the phone number here. Mr. Brockhoff, so much talked about, understandably, of the heritage value through the parliamentary triangle as well. Does the Planning Institute have a perspective or a set of recommendations around the preservation of heritage in this area?
Look, there's no doubt this is of national significance. It's not just a Canberra issue. Having the important parliamentary and nationally significant institutions and tourist areas serviced by light rail is only going to add to the value of Canberra and the importance of Canberra as our nation's capital. So absolutely, the Planning Institute sees the national significance of the parliamentary triangle and all of its features, and it's totally appropriate for the National Capital Authority to look through that lens in determining aspects of the project. And we would look for really high design quality, high breadth of consultation, and a really strong understanding of the planning outcomes that really appreciate the significance of the national significance of that area.
Given this route, there is a lot of detail to settle on and to also air in this parliamentary inquiry. I appreciate your views ahead of your submission today, John Brockhoff.
No, my pleasure. I think that the existence of the opportunity for the Planning Institute to get involved with Parliament today on this is really useful and interesting. We'll be putting forward our strong support for the light rail network and the supporting land use results and the ability to accommodate growth in Canberra as a whole. We are interested in all of the different sections and stages of the light rail, and we don't want to see a decision on staging compromise any future rollout of future stages of the light rail.
Thank you for your time today, John Brockhoff. It gets people talking, as is always the case with planning and key infrastructure in the ACT. John Brockhoff, who is Principal Policy Officer with the Planning Institute of Australia, they will be submitting to this Joint Standing Committee at Parliament House today.